I can still see you, Beth.
I can't see myself.
Right, we should be live. Hopefully there's some people joining us, so welcome everybody. Hello. Thanks ever so much for joining us this Thursday lunchtime, just before what's going to be a cracking bank holiday, we hope, with lots of sunshine. So I'm Bella Osborne, and I'm joined today by the wonderful Cressida McLaughlin. And we're going to do a bit about our books, and then we're going to dive straight into Q&As. So you should find there's a little tab at the bottom of the screen that says Q&A. So if you click on there, you can type in any questions for us, and we'll answer pretty much anything about books and publishing and writing and anything you want to ask, really. So get the questions in, and I'll now hand over to Cressy to tell us a bit about her latest release.
Okay, hi everyone, thanks for joining us. My latest release came out last Thursday, and it's called The Cornish Cream Tea Summer. I've got a copy of it here, but I think it'll appear backwards, so apologies if you can't read it. It's the second in the Cornish Cream Tea series. The first one came out last year and it was called The Cornish Cream Tea Bus, and this one is set in the same village of Porthgollo in Cornwall, and it follows Delilah, who is the cousin of Charlie, who's in the first book, and she turns up in Porthgollo after something disastrous has happened to her in London, and she thinks that a breakaway might be a good idea. And it turns out that she kind of sticks her fingers in far too many pies, and they end up taking the Cornish Cream Tea Bus to the set of a new period drama that's filming in the area, and it's about what happens there. Lots of delicious cakes and food, lots of drama and lots of romance. So that is the Cornish Cream Tea Summer in a nutshell. And now I'll hand back to Bella to talk about Meet Me at Pebble Beach.
That sounds great. Yes, so my new book, which I don't have a copy of because I'm still waiting for my author copies, but there's the cover. But they're on their way to me apparently. There's obviously been lots of problems thanks to the pandemic, but the author copies are on my way, so I can't wait to get my hands on those. So Meet Me at Pebble Beach is the story of Regan. So Regan plays pranks with one of the guys at work, and that's all absolutely fine. And she's a bit bored, so she buys herself a lottery ticket and she secures it in her desk over the weekend, and she writes a list of what she might do if she won that big rollover lottery. What would she do with her life? All those things she'd change about it. And she comes into work on the Monday, and her friend is jumping up and down and going, check your ticket, I think you've won. She checks the ticket, £10 million. There's one winner and they've won £10 million. She's over the moon. So her boyfriend rings to have a go at her, so she tells him where he can go and says, you can clear out all my stuff because I won't need that, give it to charity, I'm off. Tells her boss where he can stick her rubbish little job, and she's walking out of the building on an absolute high to be told it's a prank. You've not won the lottery. She's got no job, no boyfriend, no home. All she's got is the wish list that she drew up, and now she's got to see what she can do with that.
That is a brilliant premise. Oh, God.
Thank you. I'm so pleased with it. It's the best hook I've ever come up with, it really is. I really hope people read it. I loved writing it, absolutely adored writing it, and the characters have got a real special place in my heart. So I really hope this finds readers. I know it's a really difficult time, but I really hope people find it and enjoy it.
Yeah, it just sounds like a brilliant premise, and just the kind of escapist fun that I think we need right now, when things are kind of happening the way that they are. I find that I read loads of different genres. I love kind of dark books and thrillers, but actually at the moment I'm just reading kind of rom-coms and uplifting fiction and things that take me to beautiful settings as well. Just that's kind of what I need at the moment. I don't know if anyone else is the same. I don't know what you think, Bella.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I'm still reading some things for book club because that's really good, because that makes me sort of widen my my sphere of reading. But I do love a rom-com, and absolutely right now that's what you need, isn't it? You need something that's going to make you chuckle and something to take you away from all the madness that's going on in the world.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. Right, shall we go with that? We've got a couple of questions. So we had one in earlier from Linda. So Linda says, when writing a book, what comes first, the storyline or the setting? Let's go first.
Yeah, I think that really depends on the book. I've had books where the storyline has come first, the setting has come first, or a main character and their kind of predicament has come first. with the Cornish cream tea books, I really wanted to set a book in Cornwall. I've visited there for the last few years after never having kind of gone until I think 2015, and I just fell in love with it, and I just thought I really want to set a book here. So definitely the setting for that was the first one, but then with Cornish Cream Tea Summer, having kind of watched Poldark and loved it, I really loved the idea of having this kind of period drama appear and the bus having to go and be part of the kind of catering for the film set and all the kind of interest that that would bring. So while I already had the setting in my head, it was definitely the storyline that kind of popped up first. And then previous ones, House of Birds and Butterflies, I've really wanted to set a book on a nature reserve. So that, again, that started with a setting, and then I kind of found my way into the characters and things. What about you?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So setting comes quite early for you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that probably is the last thing for me. So usually my characters rock up and then start tapping away at my brain. So it's usually character driven. But with this one, the idea did sort of come about probably at the same time as Regan popped up. And it's that thought, what if? So I had a relationship, as in, you know, a good working relationship with a guy a few years ago. And I've worked in an office for years, and we used to prank each other all the time, and we used to mess about. It got us through the day. And it was that sort of what if a prank escalated? What if somebody went too far?
Yeah.
What could happen? And yes, that's where that came from.
Oh, it's just such a brilliant idea. Why do you go onto Kindle after this and just like pre-order it from what I just
I should have said it's out on the 28th of May, so mine's out a week today. So yeah, okay, do you want to pick the next question?
Okay, the next one is from Sarah Bennett, and she said, what adjustments have you had to make to your usual working routine because of the strange circumstances we find ourselves in? Do you want to answer that first?
Okay. I'm generally eating more biscuits. I think that's one of the adjustments I've made. And thanks to my daughter, I'm doing Joe Wicks in the morning, which I swear he will kill me before COVID does. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. But I feel like that balances the biscuits quite nicely. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's good. But otherwise, it's pretty BAU for me. I think business as usual. You know, it's I've had edits coming in. I'm starting on the next book. We're really lucky, aren't we, as authors? We get to work from home, so we're used to being isolated. We don't get to see many people. We don't get out much anyway, so it's actually fairly normal for us. So yes, certainly not as many changes as a lot of people have had to make. So
yeah, I would definitely echo that. I was doing a first draft when the whole thing started, and I did find that my concentration, certainly for the first few weeks, wasn't going as well as usual, and it kind of felt a bit more of an effort to kind of get the words down. But I think now I've settled into it, and I've just, you know, told myself, don't spend hours looking at Twitter. It does feel pretty much the same. And like you, although I've never gone near Joe Wicks because I've heard how hard it is, I do get up and do like an exercise YouTube video, which then means that when I kind of crack into the biscuits, I don't feel quite as guilty. And I've just had some edit notes back, and I find that structural edits, which is the first biggest stage of editing a book, are always the hardest to focus on. So with the kind of concentration issue, I'm hoping that I can just dive right in and not get too distracted by it. But like you say, I feel like we are particularly lucky in terms of the way that we work. It hasn't really changed that much. And although kind of missing seeing friends and family, make sure that I've spent a lot of time in the garden, so I do get lots of fresh air. But yeah, so not a huge amount of adjustments really.
Right, next question is from Rachel, and it's from Norwich.
Hi, Rachel. I know Rachel.
One for Cressy. Cressy, have you had any experience in the world of TV? What's the next book going to be about, please?
Okay, I haven't really had any experience in the world of TV at all, and in fact I found a really helpful person called Ross Banbury, who has been an extra and also a producer, to answer a huge ream of questions I had about what it was like working on a TV set. So I did want to make sure that that part of the book felt quite authentic, even if I then did twist it to fit into the plot. So sadly, no experience of working in TV, although I would never want to be in front of a camera anyway, for that kind of thing. But it was great to kind of hear about what it was like behind the scenes. And I also watched a lot of Poldark behind the scenes videos, which wasn't too much of a hardship. The next book is called Cornish Cream Tea Christmas. So it is back in the same place, and it is set at Christmas time, and there's a new heroine who turns up in Porthgollo to help Daniel Harper, who runs the posh Clifftop Hotel, turn his hotel into an eco hotel. So he wants it to be much more sustainable. And she turns up in Porthgollo and discovers that actually it's an incredibly magical place, and it's what happens to her when she arrives. So that's the next book, and that is a quick summary of what it's about.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
And Rachel has asked for you, Bella. I've not read any of your books, but I love the sound of this new one, so we'll wait for the paperback. When will it be available?
28th of May, 1 week today.
So not long to wait at all.
Not long. You can pre-order it now if you like, and it'll just pop up or arrive.
The next one is from Laura Pickett. Hi, Laura. This is for Bella. What's the best prank you've pulled? Oh, I really want to know the answer to this.
Well, we didn't do anything major, certainly not like Alex and Regan. I think it's probably fake meetings. They're always quite entertaining, especially if somebody's a bit worried about something and they're working on a deadline, and then you put a meeting in their diary for somebody very important, demanding something a week earlier than it should be. So that's always quite entertaining. That's always, you watch them panic for a bit. That's quite, that's
brilliant prank.
Yeah. That's quite naughty. But generally we used to do things like, certainly if people aren't very IT literate, if they leave their desktop unlocked, you can flip the screen upside down. So when they come back, the screen's upside down. If you don't know how to put it back, it just confuses the life out of people. They're just like, what's going on?
That is the one prank that I used to do, because they were always so strict about lock your screen when you leave your desk. So if any of our colleagues would go away, we'd always turn it upside down, or I think one of my friends knew how to write an email that looked like it was going to a big boss and looked like they'd sent it. So it wasn't just a draft on their screen, but it looked like they'd come back and someone had sent this kind of horrendous email to their boss when they hadn't really done it. So those were the kind of pranks that we did as well. But I just don't have the kind of brain to be that inventive, sadly.
Yeah, we used to do that as well, but we generally used to do to the big boss like a love letter from the person whose desk it was. That was always quite, I've been gazing on you from afar, and it's usually quite entertaining. You said, oh my goodness, delete.
That's amazing. I'm so pathetic at those things. Like, I remember when I was younger, we tried to do an April Fool's joke by putting shredded wheats in the ice cube tray. But obviously it's in April, so no one wanted any ice cubes, and we got round to like July, and then suddenly we put ice cubes in our drinks and forgotten that there were these shredded wheats in them. So it completely backfired.
Slightly delayed.
Yeah.
Right. We've got one popped up on the chat, so if you try and keep it on the Q&A then we won't miss any, but I'll just pull this one off there. It's from Jenny Walters. Jenny says, will you make any references to coronavirus in your future books, or will you just pretend it hasn't happened?
I will pretend it hasn't happened, I think. I always set my books in the time period that they're going to come out. So Cornish Cream Tea Summer is set this summer, so kind of from now right through to August. And obviously there's no mention of it at all because I didn't know it was coming. And then the Christmas one will be set this Christmas. And I just feel like, certainly with our types of books, I don't think that that's what people want to read about. I feel like they want a bit of escapism. And so when it's so hard at the moment, my kind of thoughts for both writing and reading is that I wouldn't really want to kind of put that in my book, or certainly not focus on it at all. I can see why for maybe a thriller or something, it might be a good hook or a good starting point for something. But for me, I am certainly going to just pretend it didn't happen. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly the same. And I also think, I'm not sure everybody realises that books are written so far in advance.
Yeah.
So I did the proofs on this book back in October. So this was signed, sealed, done, ready to be printed, back end of last year. So way before any of this has ever started. So obviously it's going to come out, and there's no mention of COVID, which is good. And I think that's right, actually. And I'm going to continue carrying on in the hope that we will start to get back to normal. And I think you're absolutely right, Cressy. I don't think our types of readers really want to hear about that. And it'd be really difficult for hero and heroine if they can't touch each other. If they've got to keep 2 meters apart. How's that going?
unless people do the lockdown romance, which I'm sure there will be a couple of, two people
Yes.
end up being stuck in lockdown together, and then obviously things ensue. Like that could be a good hook. But I think generally you're right. And I kind of got to the point where I'm reading books now and people are touching each other. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that. You have to kind of get your mind away from it and properly into the book. So yeah, I completely agree. Okay, we've got another one down here from Donna Gowland. Are you planners or pantsers? Bella?
I am a absolutely committed planner. I am a serial planner. It's in my nature. I'm a project manager by trade, so it makes absolute sense to me to plan it to the nth degree. So I love that planning stage where the ideas are forming and you're thinking about where you're going to go with it. And then I do bios for my characters, so I know their background, I know everything about them and what their motivations are, where they're going. I've even done a bio for the cat in the past. It's a backstory too. so that makes sense to me. And then I can move to post-it notes and I crack everything out on post-it notes. I mean, sometimes my characters do take me off on a slightly different tangent, so that does happen. So there's still some fluidity there, but generally, yeah, big planner. But it means my first draft I can write fairly quickly because I've done the planning beforehand. What about you, Chris?
I'm almost going to completely echo your answer in that I do the same. I didn't used to. Before I got a publishing deal, I was generally a kind of pantser, and I had my beginning and where I wanted it to go and then the end. But then, because my books are published in 4 ebook novellas before the paperback comes out. And at the beginning, when I still was working in an office for most of the time, the first part would have been published before I'd finished writing the last part, which meant that I had to know everything that was going to happen because I couldn't go back to the beginning and change it. I honestly don't know how I did that now. Like, I can't believe that my books made any kind of sense. But it did mean that I had to do proper kind of chapter plans for everything. And now that's absolutely the way I would do it. I love doing it because I feel like it gives me the freedom then to do the writing because I know what's coming next. So I can really get lost in the kind of words and the dialogue. And I don't have to think, oh, well, if they say this, then what's going to happen next? But yeah, I do character bios. I have a spreadsheet of all the dates so I don't get confused with how old people are and stuff. So yeah, I'm and like you again, I think I write my first draft fairly quickly because I've spent that long time beforehand making it all kind of watertight. And also, like you, they do sometimes go off in different directions. But I think if you've then got an anchor in your plan for them to come back to, they can do a bit of meandering, but you've got to bring them back for that next bit in the story. So that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe it's the 4 parts because I write in 4 parts as well. So I think maybe it's that does mean that driver that you do have to know what's going on. And
yeah.
The first one I did, they were saying, oh, well, you only have to deliver for part 1. I was like, no, I need to deliver the whole thing because if there's something you don't like in part 4, I can't go back and change it in part 1.
Yes.
So we really need to write it all together. So, and also the first one I did, we edited the parts separately. And because of that, it grew and grew and grew, and it was a really big book. So now we've learned to edit it all together, and that means we keep it a bit tighter.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also I think it's quite nice to do it in 4 parts because then you give that small part of the story its own arc, which means that it stays interesting all the way through and you don't have a kind of saggy middle in the middle of your book because you've kind of worked to the shape of 4 little stories, but then also make up the big one. I think it's a really good way of making sure you've got enough kind of action and drama in your stories as you go.
Well, that's interesting. So yours are obviously slightly different to mine. So mine kind of don't work as novellas on their own. So mine are just 4 parts of the story, but they each end on a cliffhanger that takes you to the next bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, slightly different. Right, who have we got next? I think we've got...
Rachel Leaders just said, sorry, did you say when the Christmas book will be available? Okay. I think it's publishing on the 12th of November as the paperback. The 4 ebook parts will come out earlier than that, but I don't have those dates off the top of my head. Probably kind of late September, early October for the parts, and then 12th of November for the full book and the paperback.
Excellent. Another one from Rachel. Have you both always written this type of story, or do you think you might write something totally different?
Well, I love reading thrillers and crime books, but I don't honestly think that I could ever write one, because I get so stressed about the continuity in my books. So I get stressed about the dates and making sure that everything fits in. And the thought of trying to plot a book where there's kind of a crime to be revealed and putting in all the points where there are kind of red herrings and things that come out, I feel like I couldn't cope with that. So I'm much happier to kind of read those rather than write them. I love ghosts, and I would love to write a ghost story, except that in the Christmas book there might be a ghostly element to that. So I'm really enjoying doing that at the moment, because I love anything kind of to do with haunted houses or old buildings that have got kind of spooky goings on. But I am putting that into this next book that's coming up, which I'm really excited about. But the main thing I love is a kind of will they, won't they romance story. I absolutely love writing that and kind of planning it, and all the chemistry between the main characters and the kind of community elements you get with kind of other characters coming in, and beautiful settings. So I think I will always want to write those kind of books. I never want to stop writing them, even if I did do something else down the line. I just can't get enough of those kind of books, both reading and writing. So that's me.
Oh, that's good to hear. So I'm absolutely a rom-com with added drama writer, however you want to call it. That's what I do, that's what I write, and I've got so many ideas, but those are the characters that always come to me. But that said, occasionally other ones pitch up. So I did draft a children's story, because these characters just pitched up, and that sort of sat there. And then last year I had 2 characters that came, and they would not leave me alone, and very annoying. So I wrote their story, and that's it's got a level of humour to it, but it's definitely not a romance. It's what they tag now as cross-generational uplit. You've got a younger protagonist and an older protagonist, and they're brought together. They're both lonely, and they're brought together by their local library. And so I had to write it, because these people just wouldn't leave me alone, and they were really strong characters. So I just said to my agent, well, I'm just going to write it, because then it's out of my head.
Yeah.
So she's going to try and find a home for it, but it's certainly not where I'm going in terms of my writing. It was just a one-off that
you knew you had to write.
Yeah. And these are
brilliant.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, what's next? Laura Pickett. Whose idea is it to release your books in 4 parts, yours or the publisher's? Do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, so I started off with Harper Impulse, which was part of HarperCollins, and I was with them, and then Avon picked up my first book and took it into supermarkets, and it was Avon, also HarperCollins, that asked me if I would like to write books in 4 parts. So it was their suggestion, and I said, well, I can definitely give it a go, and that was how it started. And the first one I did was Willow Cottage. So yeah, absolutely driven by the publisher, but obviously now it's me that structures all of the stories in that way. How about you, Chrissy?
Yeah, I'm the same. My editor suggested that we should do it that way. I think it was just at the time that Kathy Bramley had started publishing her books, and quite a few people were having success with that format, kind of like a box set that you can you have to wait a bit for the cliffhanger. And she suggested doing it in that way, and it seemed to really fit with the kind of story that I had. So we went with that, and it's just kind of worked well ever since for all my books, really. So yeah, it's definitely been the publisher's suggestion. But yeah, it's really good fun to write like that, and you get kind of 5 covers as well, which is really nice, because they're always so pretty.
And 5 pub days as well, which is
yes,
nice.
It's 5 days in the space of a short period of time, which is never a bad thing.
You're feeling a bit embarrassed after a while, don't you? I was going to have your pub day, like, oh, I'm sorry, it's another one of mine. Yes, definitely. We can just focus on the end one if you like.
So true.
Yeah, no, that's good. Right, next question is from Danielle. And she says, when do you both get, I think she means where do you both get your inspiration from?
A huge amount of different places. I think inspiration comes from everywhere. It could come from overhearing a conversation, or something you've read in a newspaper or television, or sometimes a random idea pops into your head. I think the best book I've had in terms of a kind of solid inspiration is The House of Birds and Butterflies, which is, I said earlier, set on a nature reserve, and we go there quite a lot. We love visiting bird reserves, and it always seems that there's like a really long approach road to the nature reserve car park, and there's always like this little cottage nestled in the woods. I live in Norfolk, and I think about 4 reserves that we go to, they've all got the same things. They've got this random little cottage that's not connected to the reserve, but it's really close by. And I remember kind of driving past thinking, well, what would it be like to live there and have all these people constantly drive past or walk past with their kind of binoculars and their big telescopes and their cameras and stuff. And so then the idea appeared of this woman who works at the nature reserve, and then this guy who moves into the cottage and discovers that actually it's not this kind of tranquil, idyllic place to write that he wants it to be. And so they kind of have this battle of wits about, she's got to make the nature reserve work and he wants them all to go away. And so that was kind of the inspiration. It was just from a visit, driving past, I thought, what would it be like to live there? And then the whole book kind of flowed from that. So yeah, just for me, completely random places. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture, isn't it? I've got a file that I call Random Thoughts, and it's just gone over 20,000 words. So I've got a lot of random thoughts. So any ideas I have, I jot them down there. And then there's always some that won't leave you alone. And
Yeah.
I think those are the ones that are the ones that have got legs.
Definitely.
And the ones to focus on. But yeah, I think it comes from so many different sources. The only time I've had where the setting came to me really strongly was a walk in Wildflower Park, where I heard about, there's a park just outside Birmingham in Moseley, and it is literally a stone's throw from Birmingham city centre. You can do it in about 20 minutes. And it's a private park, and that's how it started out life. There was a manor house, and it had gardens and grounds. And when the Industrial Revolution came, they were putting in roads and worker cottages, and the manor house got separated from the grounds and the gardens, and they were going to fill it with worker cottages. So the people whose beautiful big houses all backed onto this garden bought it and turned it into a private park. So you've got access from your garden if you live there, and you can only get into it by a key. And you can still only get in by a key, but it's like a little fob now. So we went for the day, and it's just so lovely. It's just beautiful, and you just think, this is great. Imagine being so close to such a big city, and yet you've got this little oasis. So that was where the setting for that one came from, because I thought, yeah, this is fab. This has got to go in a book.
Definitely.
And also lent itself to 4 parts with the 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Of the park.
Yeah.
So
it's
yeah, so that's where that one came from. Right,
okay.
I've lost track of who's asking who what.
We're down to Rachel Leader.
Yeah.
Will that be published then, Bella, the book about meeting in the library? She likes the sound of it.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? It's with my agent, and see if she can find a home for it. I don't know. It may never get published, but I enjoyed writing it, and that's my main driver, really. So, and it was out of my head, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. Danielle, how do you choose locations for your books to be set?
Generally, just if I come across somewhere that I really love, and I feel like, I guess with the Wildflower Park, it just feels like it would be a beautiful setting. So Cornwall, instantly, all those kind of little hidden coves and tiny villages perched on the cliffs, and I just thought I have to kind of have a Cornish village. And again, with the nature reserve, they're just such a beautiful setting, quite kind of mysterious. So it's generally places that I've visited, and they've just had such a good kind of sense of atmosphere that I've wanted to kind of put them into a story. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture. I think some of them have come about because of that. I think for me, obviously, the characters tend to come first and the plot, and then so it's then me working out where that might best fit. And I think that was the case with Meet Me at Pebble Beach, because it's got a strong underlying sort of, I guess, a message about kindness, and there's pieces about homelessness in it. Well, Brighton has the second biggest homeless problem, second only to London. So that seemed like a logical place. And also, I love Brighton. To me, it's what every seaside town should be. It's just brilliant. It's got all those aspects. It's got a fabulous pier. It's got lots of little nooks and crannies and shops. And yeah, it's got a really nice atmosphere. And I didn't really realise until I started doing the research for the book that it has got a really nice community feel. And certainly the open market who I was involved with, who were really, really helpful, have been so lovely and really look out for each other. And I really like that sort of element of community. But I think Brighton is a fabulous town and a really nice setting. And who doesn't love the seaside?
This is so true. So true. Oh, this is a really good question from Laura Pickett. Have you ever been told something confidential by a friend that you've desperately wanted to put in a book? I think
no, I don't know that I've been told anything. I think if it was something confidential, it certainly wouldn't go in a book. But you do pick up things from all sorts of places, and usually the thing that is true is the thing that a reviewer will go, well, that would never happen, and that was the bit that was true. I've stolen that completely from real life, and it's one of those things. So in Walk in Wildflower Park, there is a situation where somebody falls asleep on a toilet and ends up spark out on the toilet floor with their pants around their ankles. Wasn't me, but it did happen. So there are things where you just go, that just fits so well for that character, and that's just got to go in the book. But obviously, I would never reveal who that might have been.
No, they probably wouldn't love it, would they?
No,
put it in the acknowledgements. This is your scene. I don't think that I've ever been told something confidential that I want to put in a book. I mean, I'd certainly say that there are character traits of people that I've known in the past, and I think, oh my God, this would be perfect for a book. But then if it's maybe not the most positive character trait, I do feel like, I feel like they're never going to recognise themselves, because I would never put a person in a book. You just pick up on little things like little mannerisms, the way that people say things, and sometimes those definitely make it in. Again, anonymously, I just think, the way that this person says whatever, or the way they clear their throats or something, is the things that you kind of notice that stand out are the kind of things you always want to kind of get in there, because they just add so much more kind of life and character to the books. But no, I'm going to think about that question though, probably long after this, and see if there's anything that someone's told me that I really wanted to put in a book. But off the top of my head, I can't think of anything like that.
No, I know the boss in the Walk in Wildflower Park, that was a culmination of so many bosses I've had, or so many people I've come across in the day job, where I just thought, oh, that's got to go in. So she was sort of a culmination of lots of things.
Yeah.
All those little quirks, like you say, you just go, oh my word, that's...
I do think working in a kind of big office for years just was just a huge fountain of kind of interest, the people that you know on a day-to-day basis, and also the visitors that would come in. And I used to go out and do events, and I was a waste reduction officer, which sounds a bit horrible, but actually it was a really lovely job, and it was kind of going into schools and doing assemblies about recycling and going to events and things. And so you meet this kind of huge variety of different people, some incredibly kind of eccentric, some just really lovely, and some kind of, that you'd have to like take a deep breath before speaking to. And it's just kind of an endless kind of pool of kind of inspiration for books. So I think the day job certainly was brilliant for all that stuff. Yeah, it does. It definitely helps, doesn't it? And you can. Yeah, I agree. Right. Good question. What have we got next? Danielle, would either of you consider setting a book in another country? I think my books have got a really, I think, British feel to them, with kind of lots of seaside towns. And I would consider setting a book in another country if I had been there and I'd kind of really got the feel of it, and it inspired me in the way that kind of Cornwall has. I wouldn't do it just for the sake of it. I wouldn't do it so I could get a kind of research trip into New York, for example, if it didn't kind of fit what I was feeling about. And I'm not sure whether I'm so used to kind of doing Britishy places like nature reserves and the canal and the seaside. It would be a challenge, and it would be really interesting, but I wouldn't do it just for the sake of it. I'd do it if I kind of went to a place and fell in love with it and thought there's definitely a book in here. So I think that the kind of book would have to come first, really. What about you? Yeah, no, I think very similar, to be honest. I mean, I did chuckle when I was doing Walk in Wildflower Park, when some people around me were setting their books in Provence and New York and Malta and all these glorious places, and they're like, where's yours? Mine's set in Birmingham.
You know, like, have I missed a trick here somewhere? It's like, what was I thinking? But I think for some writers, it's absolutely is their unique selling point, isn't it? So like you, Joe Thomas, you know you're going to be transported somewhere beautiful.
Isabel Broom, yeah.
Isabel Broom, absolutely. And that's a key part of the stories, is that the setting is really strong. And I think that is their thing, really. I mean,
yeah.
And I think like you, my thing really is my characters and plot, and they generally are in the UK. I've got one though, Family Holiday, which, spoiler alert, there is a holiday in it, so a big chunk of the book is set somewhere else. But yeah, that was kind of because the plot drove it that way, not because the setting was the main thing. So yeah, I think generally British Isles somewhere. We're going back to the Cotswolds for my Christmas book.
Oh, I love the Cotswolds. Oh, Christmas in the Cotswolds would just be fantastic. All those beautiful little villages like Stow-on-the-Wold, and
absolutely. Stow gets a mention. Yeah, so it's the village next to Dumbleford, which was the setting for Willow Cottage. Oh. So you might see a couple of characters that you know from there pop up.
Brilliant.
Right. So keep your questions coming in, and we'll pick them up as they pop up. In the interim, shall I ask you a question, Cressy?
Yeah.
So, first draft or edits, which do you prefer, and why?
First draft, definitely. I was thinking about this, and I absolutely love the first draft because I feel like I don't have to think too much about it. I've got my plan, and I can just kind of write away and be really fun and creative. And then the edits come in from your editor, and then you have to kind of redraft it, and I think that's the time when you have to engage your brain, because you have to make certain things work, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You've got kind of all the pieces there, but they're not necessarily fitting together how you need them to make the book the best book it can be. And while I do love that, and I think that the sense of achievement is even greater for that stage than it is for first draft, I think once you've kind of done your edits, you kind of think, oh my god, it is now kind of looking like a book. For the actual process, I much prefer the first draft. But what about you?
Same, but for different reasons. So I love the first draft, and I think it's almost like my prize for getting all my planning done, that I can now write the first draft, and that's brilliant. And I get it done, and I'm like, yes, and I do some self-editing, and I go, yes, that's brilliant. That's the best book I can write. There you go. And then structural edits come back, and I hate it. So I've already written the book. I was ready to pull it apart. So I was, no. But it is always better, and a good editor does always improve the book. But it is a very painful process for me. I just it's not my thing. So I know some people love it, don't they? Some people absolutely adore doing edits.
They do, and I feel like once I've got into the edits, it's better. I got my edit notes back yesterday for Christmas, so I got that kind of, what's it going to say? And then my editor always picks out the bits that when I sent it off to her, I was thinking, not sure if that quite works. She just knows where I need to kind of improve and what bits I need to pull out, what bits I need to get rid of. And I always find it takes me about 4 or 5 days to kind of sit there with my notes and then think about them while I'm watching TV. And then I'll come back and I'll do a plan for my edits. So I'll have like a column of, this is what happens in this chapter now, this is what needs to happen in this chapter. And once I've done that and I've thought about it for a few days, once I actually start working on it, then it gets easier. But when you get your kind of edit notes back, that's the moment you think, oh no, I've got to start.
It does feel more like work, that bit, I think. It definitely feels more like work, whereas first draft is fun.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree with that. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question now. Oh, most of my questions have been asked. I think
more coming in, I think.
I'm going to have to think of a completely different question. Do you want to ask another question?
I've got some more come in, so do you want to pick?
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, I'll ask the next one then. So this is from Donna Gowland. Tell us more about your writing careers. How did you get started?
Right, so I've always written, so I didn't know that it was weird when you left school to carry on writing. I just assumed everybody did that. So I carried on writing, but we didn't really do anything with it. So to cut the very long story short, in the day job, I'm a project manager, and we had a wonderful lady join our team as a project manager, but we didn't then have a role for her. So it was like, what else could she do? Well, she turned out that she was also a life coach. So some of my team went and had these coaching sessions with her, and they came back. Her name's Leslie Elder, and she was amazing. And my team kept coming back going, "Oh my goodness, she's changing my life." And I was like, "Really?" And so I had one person leave. Thank you, Leslie. But they went contracting, and they were the sort of person you would never have thought would have had the confidence to go contracting, but clearly that was where ultimately they wanted to go. Another one moved home because she wanted to live her world like the good life and have chickens and a big garden and all of that. So, and she did that again based on.
Wow.
I know. So I said to her, I said, "Well, can you give me some tips for when you go so I can carry on?" She said, "Oh, I'll do a session with you." And I very arrogantly went, "Well, nothing I want to change about my life. I love my life. My life's great." So she said, "No, we'll do a session." And somehow she hit on the writing. And since my daughter had arrived, I hadn't been writing. I said, "Well, no, I just don't have the time." She's like, "You're a project manager, make time." Okay. So she then bullied me basically for a few months. She called it coaching, meaning to sorting out what I was going to do with my writing and how I was going to find time. And so that was how I really got back into it. And she said, "Well, have you finished a book?" So I was like, "No, because I just write and then I get a new shiny idea." And she said, "Well, see if you can finish a book." And she said, "What else can you do?" And I found out about local writing courses and joined one of those. I found out about the Romantic Novelists Association and joined them. And that was brilliant. That was a real turning point, really. So because of them, I went to parties. Brilliant. And and one of the parties, Trisha Ashley, who's a fantastic author, she said, "Oh, you must come to conference. And if you come to conference, you must sign up for agent and editor one-to-ones." But I don't know what I'm doing. So I did, and that was how I met Charlotte Ledger, who is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
she is amazing, and she was my first editor and absolutely brilliant. And she runs what's now One More Chapter, and so that was how I got into it. So it's all Leslie Elder's fault for coaching.
Life coach sounds like a miracle worker.
She was fantastic,
amazing. God. Mine is completely the opposite in that I didn't want to be a writer at all. I've always loved books and I loved reading. And I went to the University of East Anglia to do English literature. I just wanted to read books and, kind of critique them. But because it's got a really good creative writing department, they made you do a creative writing unit as part of your first term. And I hated it. I was like, I don't want to write things. I'm not a writer. I'm just a reader. So I did my degree. And then the first job I got out of university was working for the local adult education service. And back then they weren't kind of completely on their knees with funding. And if you worked there, you could do one term of a course for free. You could kind of try it out. And I didn't know what to pick and I wasn't sure. And I just thought, I'll try creative writing. And I did one term of that and I absolutely loved it. And I thought, right, I'm gonna write a book. And so I kind of paid for a whole year of that. And then I went back to UEA and did a diploma in creative writing. And then I sat down, I thought, I'll write kind of my first novel. And then it took like 4 unpublished novels and tons of rejection letters and all that stuff to eventually kind of, and I ended up meeting my editor, Kate Bradley, at an event, another author's launch. And we kind of got talking and I said, "Oh, well, I've written a book." And she was like, "Oh, well, send it over to me." And then, 3 months later, she kind of sent me an email saying, "Let's go for lunch," kind of thing. And it was that, moment. So yeah, but I was opposite to you. There was a big chunk of my time when I thought I never want to write a book. And now I can't imagine being happy doing anything else, really. It's so strange.
It is funny how things happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very strange.
Okay.
Right.
Should we go to Linda Merriweather? Do you ever get stuck for the name of a specific character? Do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the names are really important. So I struggle to move forward without the right name.
Yeah.
So, and the name really needs to fit the character. So I know lots of people just put, X or just call them Fred and then we'll pick it up later. It's like, oh no, I can't do that. No, I need to know that character and this is my planning stage or my procrastination stage, whichever way you look at it. But it's, so it's really important to me. And I think I do occasionally get stuck, but sometimes you just know when a name is absolutely right. And that's a great moment. And whilst I love the names of the characters in Meet Me at Pebble Beach, so Regan I think is a great name, so that comes from King Lear. very much underused name, but a name I've always really liked. And it's a strong name, and I think that really fits her personality. She's quite feisty, so I think I like that. But in Walk in Wildflower Park, my hero was called Hudson Jones. He was American, and I'm just so proud of that. And when it came to us, I was like, yes! It was like a moment. Yes, that's so his name. He's so Hudson Jones. Absolutely.
Yeah. I completely agree that names are really, really important. And I always find, like, the hero, you have to get the name of the hero right. It has to be the name of a guy that sounds really amazing. Like, I remember reading a book that I absolutely loved, but the hero was called Colin. And I was just like, it kind of put me off all the way through the book. I was like, this hero is amazing, but he's called Colin, and it just didn't really work. So I agree with you that names are really important, and I spend hours on like baby naming websites looking for the right name for the character, and as you say, how it fits with their personality. And like you, I could never go through and write a draft with like, oh, maybe I'll change that person's name later. When it comes to like smaller characters, I feel like I only know about 10 names. I get so stuck. I think, oh, Ian, and I've had that before, and I just find myself like gazing at my bookshelves at all the author names and seeing if I can find something on there. But yeah, I spend hours trying to come up with the right names for people, definitely.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards Graham as a secondary character or a minor character. I don't know why that is. Like, I notice it when I'm editing. I go, another Graham. No.
Yeah. I have lots of like Peters and Pauls. So yeah, have I had a Peter before? And often I'll find, oh, I've had a Peter before and I have to change it again. Yeah.
I've got a spreadsheet for my names so I can keep track of them to see.
Brilliant. I don't have that.
It was Jill Mansell's idea, because she said when she got to, I don't know, like book umpteen, she said, I wished I'd had a spreadsheet with all the names, because I'm running out of names, and I just thought, that's what I'll do then. So I started one early, and that's...
I can spend lots of time doing that instead of starting my edits.
You should. You absolutely should. It's very important that you have one. Right, what have we got? Next one, Emily Davis. Have either of you ever had a technology nightmare and lost a chunk of your work when it hasn't saved properly? If so, other than cry, what did you do? Were you able to remember what you'd written?
Oh my God, the thought of that sends kind of shivers down my spine. I've never had that happen to me. I've had a couple of times where I've hit the wrong combination of keys and I've deleted it, but then I can go back and press undo and bring it back. But I've never had that thing where it hasn't saved or the things corrupted. I always like save my work and then I back it up and then I email it to myself, and without fail I'll email it and then I'll hear the little email notification go, oh, I've got an email, and then it's always from me. So but I always do that, so I've got kind of several backups every day when I do some writing, because I just feel like the thought of having to start all over again, and I think that if you have to do that, it won't be as bright and sparkly, because you'll be trying to remember what you've written. So unless you think, oh, well, that's gone, so I'm going to start in a different place or write a different scene, I just feel like it won't ever be as good as it was. So no, luckily, so far, touch wood, I haven't had that happen. What about you?
I've had it happen properly once, when I was doing Nano. So I do... in November, there's a crazy thing called National Novel Writing Month, where you write 50,000 words in a month, and everyone has to live on fish fingers, and nothing gets dusted. It's bonkers, but it does work. It really does work. And doing that once, I lost a whole day's work. So it was like 2,500 words, and I couldn't get it back. And I had people look at my laptop, and we couldn't get it back. I don't know what happened, but I lost it. But I'm still convinced that was the best 2,500 words I have ever written.
Of course.
I could never reproduce them. But another funny one was slightly my own fault. I had my laptop on the floor in the living room, and I've been working away, and it was great. And then I wandered off. I came back, and the cat was lying across, and the screen was blank. And I was like, no. So I looked, and I had 6 blank pages. I was like, oh my God, what's she done? What she'd done was stand on the space bar. So that was exactly what
still there.
Yeah, so she'd added 6 pages of spacebar. Oh, thank goodness for that. But I thought, I've lost it.
Yeah.
Because she does like to be involved. She's my admin assistant, and she does like to.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Well, I've got the door shut at the moment. She doesn't usually like to join Zoom calls, unfortunately.
Oh, it's a shame.
Because I use lots of post-it notes, I screw them up. So if I shout filing, she comes and I follow the screw up, and she goes and she files it somewhere. But then, because she thinks she's a dog, she'll bring it back. So I'll carry on working. I'll get wow, and she's sat there with the paper between her paws for me to throw it again because she plays fetch.
She sounds amazing.
She's a little bit bonkers, but bless her. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, we've got another one on the top. We've got a few coming up on the chat.
On the chat.
Let's try and have a look at those. Okay. Do you want to grab one?
Okay, there's one from Kate Nash. If you could take one of your stories off to the beach today to read again, which one would you choose and why?
Well, I couldn't take my first one because I think I want to edit it. Because you learn something. With every book you learn and you get better. Which would I take to the beach and why? I'm still in love with Meet Me at Pebble Beach at the moment, and I go through a very strange thing where I miss those characters, and because you become so embroiled in it all and so close to them, and I do really think this is a really special book. And I've probably peaked at this point, everybody. So apologies if the books after this aren't that great, because I just really feel this is a special one. So it would have to be Pebble Beach.
It sounds great, reading about a beach on a beach.
Absolutely. What about you?
I don't know. I think the book that I probably feel closest to, even though it's probably the one that has sold the least copies, is The House of Birds and Butterflies, I think, which is the one set on a nature reserve. And I really miss those characters, and I would definitely love to kind of go back and revisit them. I feel like they've got loads more potential for kind of things further down the line, and it's quite an immersive setting, the nature reserve, kind of with lots of hidden hides and areas like that. So I feel like if I was going to take one to the beach and get properly lost in it, I think it would probably be The House of Birds and Butterflies. So
do you think that's something you'd want to write a sequel to?
Yeah, but then I feel that about all my books. I feel like all my characters I sometimes sit here and wonder what they're doing. I think, what would they be doing now? Kind of how far along have they got in their relationship? What is Kat doing with all her dogs? How much more trouble has she got into? And so I feel, but that is one I think that I would definitely love to write a sequel to, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. Would you do a sequel for any of yours?
I think I've got too many other ideas. I get asked quite a lot if there's going to be a sequel, and I'm usually like, no, because I've got the new shiny idea and the new shiny characters. I think it's because new characters come.
Yeah,
that's it. And also I think it must be difficult to do something with them unless you're going to pick secondary characters. Because if you pick up from your main characters, what do you do with them? The last thing you want to do is split them up. But do you really want to put them through all the torture that usually comes through a book?
No, you have to find conflict, don't you? And I feel like they're also kind of happily together that you don't want to do that. I did a short sequel to the Canal Boat Cafe called Canal Boat Cafe Christmas, and I had to kind of put conflict between the two characters there, and that was kind of torturous to begin with, because I was like, but no, they're happy together, it's all going to go brilliantly, and I had to kind of make it all go a bit rocky in the middle. And like you, because I love the will they won't they, once they've got together they should have their happy ever after, really.
Don't be messing with that.
No,
I agree.
I got any more?
Oh, we got. Yeah. Okay, did I know that Walking Wildflower Park is 99p on Kindle? I do. It's 99p till the end of the month, so grab it while you can.
Oh, everyone, go and buy it. 99p is amazing. Such a steal.
Oh, okay. Stephen Lawley. I've written a book on Amazon with two others with 15 5-star, but it could be better. Any tips on getting an agent and or a publisher? Oh, top tips.
Okay. I think what I would say, if you're looking for an agent and or a publisher, lots of people do like getting an agent, although there are kind of publishers that will accept submissions now where you don't have to have an agent. But what I would say if you're approaching an agent and a publisher is do your research and make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you. So if you're looking for an agent, look at the type of book that you've written and books that are kind of similar or in a similar genre, and go to their acknowledgements in the back of their books and see who their agents are. and then get in touch with those agents, because you want someone who will love your work and who will look after it really well for you. And to do that, you have to find a really good fit. And if you approach any agent, make sure that you do it kind of personally. So don't do a big blanket, hi, Mr. Agent, Mrs. Agent. Make sure that you're doing it because you feel like you would have a good working relationship with them. Treat that bit of the process with the same care as you treat your writing. If you love your writing and you want it to get published, you want to find the right place for it to go. And so you need to kind of do that. That was probably a really garbled response, but that is kind of the one tip that I would have. That's what I did when I was looking for agents. I kind of looked at the books that I loved reading that were romantic comedies, and I found out who those agents were. And then I kind of approached those saying, this is why I've got in touch with you specifically. So that's my tip. What about you, Bella?
That's good. No, that's a good top tip. I definitely echo that and say, yeah, that's absolutely the right way to go, certainly for agents. And as you've said, there's quite a few publishers that now have open submission days or have open submission for quite all the time, really. So certainly for digital first publishers, and there's some cracking publishers out there. So definitely look those up and go for those. The other thing I'd suggest is if you join organisations that are right for your writing, so there's the Crime Writers Organisation, there's Scooby for Children's, and there's the Romantic Novelists Association, there's lots of them out there, and they hold conferences and events and lots of opportunity to meet people. And I think meeting editors and agents is really good because you really need to match to that person. It's really important. Your relationship with your editor is really important. You've got to do this book together, and you need to get on, and you need to know that that person gets you and loves what you're doing. And if it doesn't, it really isn't good. So it's really important. So I'd say opportunity to meet those people, chat to them, will really help, and make sure you make the right choices. And good luck. Hope it works out for you.
Yes, good luck. I would also say, just kind of echoing that, is that although it's a professional relationship that you have with your editor and agent, because writing books is such a personal thing, that it has to be a mix of both things. It's not just like a kind of boss relationship. It is a really personal relationship as well. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. Okay, there are a couple more questions. Should we see if we can fit those in? So, Danielle, do you have a favourite character from your books?
Again, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because you love them all, and the worst question is when people say, which is your favourite book, and you go, I can't, because it's like choosing which is my favourite children, which is good because I've only got the one, so that's probably why we only had the one. So, I think I love the animal characters, so I always have an animal character in my books. So there was a wonderful author called Zoe Barnes, who sadly is no longer with us, and very early on in my writing she sent me a lovely email. I emailed her and she replied, giving me loads of encouragement. And she always had a character, an animal that was a real character, so it wasn't just a walk-on part. They really added to the book, and I've always tried to emulate that in my stories because I just think I really like that, and I'm a huge animal lover. So Meet Me at Pebble Beach has a very large Irish wolfhound called Elvis, and I love him. He's brilliant. He doesn't know he's as big as he is, but yes, he's sort of part werewolf. You know, he
sounds brilliant.
Great big hairy thing. So yes, so he's brilliant. So I very much love Elvis. I think he's one of my favourites at the moment. How about you?
It's so hard to choose, isn't it? I think I have to choose one of my heroes though, because that's like one of the most fun bits. And I think I would choose Jack from The House of Birds and Butterflies, because he's a thriller author. He's kind of very grumpy posh boy, but with a heart of gold underneath. So he's got that whole kind of slightly mysterious, distant thing. And Abby, the heroine, really has a kind of tough nut to crack in him. But then obviously once she starts doing that, you can see his softer side. And I just loved creating him. I just thought he was a really fun character to create. And so if I had to pick one of my characters, then it would probably be Jack, I think. Yeah.
Nice, sounds good. So, that's a thank you, which is lovely. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
I think that might be it.
Yes, and that's it. I think we've answered everything.
I think we have.
Oh, another thank you. Okay, well, thank you for the thank yous. That's been lovely. Thanks for joining in, and thanks very much for asking us questions, because it would have been a very dull hour without them.
I could honestly do this all afternoon. It's just been so much fun to kind of chat about books and writing. And
it's nice to see people as well, even if it's through a screen. So that's really nice
definitely.
That's really good. So yeah, so if you're bored over the weekend or you've got some time coming up, please do order Cressy's book. Get a copy. It's available now, and mine's coming out in a week's time. There you go. Look at that. And that would be lovely. Best way to say thank you to an author.
Yes, buy books.
Buy a book, feed an author. Thanks everybody. It's been great fun. Bye.
Bye everyone. Bye. Thank you.